Well, this past Saturday, the state celebrated 100 years of Indiana high school boys basketball, and hundreds of legends and previous state champions graced the streets of downtown Indianapolis and were greeted by thousands of people.
The weekly special's Dave Leno explores why basketball is so cherished in the Hoosier state and how history has shaped the way the game is played today.
While reminiscing about his team's state title run last year, Bloomington High School South coach J.R. Holmes couldn't end the chat without recognizing his team's fans.
Well, I started back in the next to last home game with Detroit Country Day. It was number 3 in the country, and we beat them and had a full house. And after that, all of our crowds just exploded all the way through the tournament. And I think the community and the town actually got involved with supporting us, so it was great.
It's not uncommon to find Hoosiers living vicariously through their local high school teams. It is believed that basketball really took off in this state because of its small rural communities instead of having many industrial cities. Different from states like Ohio and Pennsylvania, where there were tons of kids to field football teams, Indiana's small communities realistically could only produce enough to represent a basketball team.
As farm communities go in Indiana, fall is the harvest time, spring is the planting time. All these kids were usually involved in farm communities. Winter was the time to play sports. So a winter sport such as basketball would lend itself well to in communities through Indiana.
Because teams were extensions of small towns, Butler University and the Indiana High School Athletic Association partnered to build Butler Fieldhouse. Upon its completion, the Mecca became the second largest sports facility, only behind Madison Square Garden. Later renamed Hinkle Fieldhouse in 1965, many kids dreamed about playing at the venue.
I can remember being a little kid out on a garage with a little hoop and a radio listening to the state championship, and I felt like I was living it then as a 5th and 6th grader, and you just came up with it. There's just something about Indiana and basketball, you just can't separate it.
On the introductory page in his book, Pioneers of the Hardwood, Gould leads off with a quote from Dr. James Naismith, the inventor of basketball. Naismith says, even though the game originated in Massachusetts, its roots stem from Indiana. And one of the big movies that widely publicized Indiana high school boys basketball was Hoosiers.
The game from which that's based, the 1954 Indiana State High School Championship between tiny Milan High School against Muncie Central, was really the classic David versus Goliath story.
Bobby Plum dribbling, 6 seconds. Plum going down, jump, shoots from the circle, score!
It's a great ball game and a great way to sort of capture the spirit of what Indiana high school basketball was all about, because it was about these small towns, and it was the fact that Indiana high school ball was an extension of all these small communities, and the fact that there was a great civic pride wrapped around these teams that would face off against each other each Friday night.
But one of the high schools that arguably dealt with tougher situations was Crispus Attucks in the mid-1950s. Faced with discrimination and hatred toward its squad, Oscar Robertson and his teammates had to travel to neighboring states, not cities, just to play on Friday nights.
There's Oscar Robertson.
Crispus Attucks changed the public's perception by winning and winning big.
2-0, Attucks.
Thanks to the Big O and a supporting cast, Coach Ray Crow's team captured 2 consecutive state titles in 1955 and 1956. They became the first all-black team not only to win a title in Indiana, but also in the country.
It meant a lot, and now over the years, I mean, it's been so many years now, it meant a lot to the people and to the city. I think it united the city. I know one thing for a fact, it caused the schools to integrate, because we were winning so many games. Coaches got tired of guys going out of their district coming to Crispus Attucks.
After the team's victories, the number of African-American players enrolling in predominantly white schools skyrocketed. That's why these 2 former East Chicago Roosevelt High School players have so much respect for their predecessors.
They paved the way for us, people like Oscar Robertson and Ron Bonham and the 1960 state championship team, Washington. They paved the way for guys like us to come along and be able to do the things that we did. And so it's been absolutely great.
It was just that you knew that you were capable of doing it if you went out and you put the work in. You had to be disciplined, work hard, and just do what came naturally for you.
Just when teams were adding diversity to the mix, the basketball landscape changed dramatically following Bloomington High School North's title in 1997. The IHSAA threw out the idea of having just one state champion and instead opted for a class system.
I see both sides of it, and I see how some of the smaller schools, have had a chance to win a state. And so while it was very, very important to me and our team to win it in the last, I also see the advantages of thing today.
Even though 4 state champions are crowned each year and the David versus Goliath scenario is not as prevalent, many legends agree that the future looks bright for Indiana high school boys basketball. Thanks to the advancement in media, even the small schools are finding themselves in the newspaper, on the radio, and even on TV. Gould says you have to look at both sides, though, and admits that amateur athletics might be taking away the prestige of high school athletes. But no matter the opinion, everyone agrees that Indiana and basketball will remain synonymous with one another as long as the game is played. Reporting for the Weekly Special, I'm Dave Leno.
Because there are many basketball enthusiasts in the state, the IHSAA continues to play its state title games at large venues.
And since 2000, the boys basketball championships have been held at Conseco Fieldhouse. Prior to that facility, fans witnessed the action at other big arenas like the Hoosier Dome, Market Square Arena, and Assembly Hall.